nice one, Jarod. Can't you do anything useful?
I can play my flute.
I want to begin this episode review with a little experiment. Judging from the title alone, what do you think this episode's plot is based on? A. Ghost hunting. B. Dungeons and Dragons. Or C. Discovering an underground civilization. If you guessed B, then you'd be correct. Phantasm Chasm is the PPG reboot universe's variation of D&D, although I wouldn't blame you for not getting that based on the title alone. Guess you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and I certainly don't plan on it considering this is a relatively common idea that's been done in such a wide array of media before. Plenty of other cartoons have tackled this subject, so it's no surprise that D&D is deciding to pop up once again here inside the Powerpuff Girls reboot. Let's just see what Phantasm Chasm has in store for us, shall we?
I cast a shield spell! I use my +2 shiny sword.
I blast it with a bazooka.
You can't use a bazooka.
Says so right here in the rule book. Yippity doo doo.
Alright, so let's at least go in with an open mind. Maybe this won't be so bad even if it's got him in it. We are brought into the living room where the Powerpuff Girls are seen sitting at their coffee table directly across from who else but Fucky McFuckboy himself, Jarod, DMing their ongoing game of Phantasm Chasm. Blossom and Bubbles are totally invested in this game, as illustrated by their enthusiastic delight, while Buttercup just slacks off to the side, remarking on how lame this game is, despite the fact that she's already been playing it for hours, supposedly. Seriously though, Blossom and Bubbles are going all out in this game, and Buttercup's just like, nah, I ain't having any of that shit.
This game is for dork faces.
Hey!
Buttercup, you're being rude. Jared's cool.
In what universe? Remember when Blossom was nervous to be around Jarod in season 1? I guess this technically qualifies as character development, you know, even if you don't support it like me, so I gotta be fair at least. Their basic end goal in this game, as Jarod explains, is to find and vanquish the Blob King so that they may destroy the Phantasm Crystal, which does something, I guess? I don't know. Jarod never explains what the purpose of the crystal is, so everyone just has to roll with it. Does the crystal give the king his power? Is it brainwashing all the villagers throughout the land? Who knows? Anyways, Buttercup, being the impulsive brat that she is, takes the model of the crystal that Jarod holds up and smashes the toy on the ground, which somehow, some way, transports the four of them into the actual world of Phantasm Chasm. Okay, time out. Since when is this a rule of the universe that a plain old board game can just magically teleport you into the game without a moment's notice? Is the game possessed? Does every edition of this game do this, or is it just this one specific game? If the former is true, then who on earth possessed it? Allegro? Him? They would have been acceptable answers to this question. Or, if it's the latter, then how on earth does it work? Do all of the kids who play this game get warped into this alternate reality, never to be seen again? That's gotta be terrible for business sales. I mean, just think of what the parents must be going through. You know, in most media, when characters do this whole go inside the world of the game thing, there's usually a comprehensible reason given as to why they're in the game. Sometimes we get an explanation, like in, say, Unikitty, for example, where the main characters end up getting this possessed game from some creepy, shadowy figure who pretty much acts as the source for its hauntedness. Other times it's caused by either magic or a curse of some sort, like in, say, Gravity Falls or Friendship is Magic. Phantasm Chasm is awfully similar to Teen Titans Go's Riding the Dragon episode, and I'll admit that that one was kinda half-assed too. And in other cases, the characters are simply imagining it, and we just get some cross-cutting between the two, both the fantasy world and reality. But nope, not here. It just happens because reasons.
It says here, if we beat the game for real, we should be transported back home.
I think the imagination thing would have been the safer option here, but as the episode shows, the characters do not acknowledge that it was in their heads, and a few of the characters even retain the physical changes that they experience inside the game world, but, well, you'll see what I mean when we get there. The show literally just makes up the rules of its world as it goes. Nobody questions where Jarod got the book from. He just has it, and the girls don't bat an eye. Whatever, okay, this is what we're gonna work with. So they arrive inside the game with Blossom a knight, Bubbles a barbarian who's obsessed with her beard, Buttercup an archer, and Jarod a bard.
There's Castle Nestwald. We're in Phantasm Chasm.
Castle Neswald. That name sound familiar at all? The insert list just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, and Blossom also makes this side remark about the professor worrying when they get trapped in other dimensions for too long, so apparently this is an alternate dimension. I think it could be a reference to Somewhere Over the Swing Set, considering they were trapped in an alternate dimension there too. I'd like to think it is, but there's no proving this one way or another, I don't think. And go figure, the supposed rulebook says they can't go back home until they beat the game, just like every other story that follows these exact same tropes. So basically, Jarod is a terrible DM because he would have had to have known this game was possessed if he read and studied the book ahead of time like a good DM would. Buttercup, not having any time for this bullshit, steals the book for herself and reads out the line, "Taste that which is sweet and you'll never retreat," before zapping it to ash with her eye lasers.
Look, we beat up monsters every day. How tough could it be?
You're a terrible person.
I mean, honestly, given the circumstances, that was about the dumbest move Buttercup possibly could have done, and go figure that's the one she went for. All of a sudden, flying koala bats capture Blossom and Bubbles and take them away to the castle, leaving Jarod and Buttercup in the dust.
Aww, they probably just want to say hello. Hello! Ah! I was wrong!
So with the two left alone without a clue of what to do, Jarod explains that the name insert castle has a magic shield that they can't get through, forcing them to go around a different way.
Well, it's official. I hate this place, and by extension, you.
Same, Buttercup. Same. I have to admit, she has been acting like way more of a jerk than usual in this episode, and under normal circumstances, I'd totally side against her. But watching her talk shit on Jarod is very cathartic for me. He seems pretty unfazed by this capture, as he is for most of this episode, and explains that, as a bard, he has a magic flute that sounds so horrible it literally makes my ears bleed. The two of them then discuss their course of action, in which they need to find the secret passage to gain entrance to the castle, and for some reason Buttercup complains about a movie trilogy being really boring, which I'm guessing was a reference to Lord of the Rings? I mean, I don't want to assume, but it's the first thing anybody's mind would go to, considering the similarities between D&D and Tolkien.
To find it, we're gonna have to go on some epic quest full of challenges, dangerous creatures at every corner, and we won't even get to the cool stuff until the third movie!
What was so bad about the first two movies? Well, conveniently for Buttercup, it turns out that the secret passage is literally right over there, so the two end up heading through on their quest to reunite with Blossom and Bubbles and rescue them from the evil Blob King.
You know, you can't solve every problem with violence.
Yet, this show doesn't seem to want to solve any of its problems with violence. The two then stumble upon their first challenge on their quest to save her sisters, in which they need to select the proper cup that this giant stone golem supposedly drinks his morning coffee from. This is, of course, an obvious reference to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, although Jarod completely screws it up, go figure, and awakens the monster, so the two of them have to fight for their lives before it kills them. And by the two of them, I mean Buttercup only, because Jarod is completely useless thanks to his ear-grating flute playing. Alright, he's not utterly useless, and at least Buttercup is seen beating something up and winning for once, since, well, normally she just goes down in one hit.
Yeah, we did it!
No, we didn't do anything. I did. You just keep getting us into trouble. I don't get what Blossom and Bubbles see in you.
Damn, Buttercup just completely shutting him down like that. That's rough. She actually ditches him entirely and leaves him behind, floating on down the cave and coming across a door that doesn't appear to open. So what does she do? She punches it.
Ha! Gross, dude! Blah! Okay, door. Prepare to come unhinged.
Yep, that completely backfired on her, as she is now getting trapped by this green ectoplasm that begins pulling her in because the plot demands that she get stuck by something that causes her to need Jarod's help, so she realizes he's not as bad as she thought and they can grow respect for each other. Yeah, despite the awful things Buttercup said to him, Jarod still comes to her rescue so that the show can paint him as this morally superior character who poses as the true hero of the episode that helps Buttercup see the error of her ways. Oh wow, look at how noble and great this character is, because he has no flaws and is perfect in every way. Blech. The two then proceed to continue on after calling each other friends and wind up in the throne room where they rendezvous with Blossom and Bubbles, who are now like 8,000 pounds for some reason.
No offense, dudes, but you really let yourselves go.
Haha, funny. I will never understand 95% of this show's sense of humor. I know comedy is subjective, so somebody out there probably does, but
I haven't the faintest fucking idea.
the girls explain that the koala bats supposedly weren't evil after all, and just wanted them to have a feast of sorts. This of course fools Jarod, and just as he's about to dig into a cupcake, Buttercup recalls the warning she coincidentally read from the book. Taste that which is sweet and you'll never retreat. By eating this food, Blossom and Bubbles were unable to stop themselves and have gained all of this weight as a result before the Blob King could arrive. I guess it makes sense that the Blob King wants to turn them into giant blobs so that he can get more enjoyment out of eating them. So we now know his motive for being evil, although whatever happened to their costumes? Where'd they go and why are they back in their normal outfits if this is a fantasy world? And what was stopping Blossom and Bubbles from just smashing the crystal before they ate anything? I mean, if Blossom were actually smart, she'd just see the Phantasm crystal right there and smash it so they could all leave ASAP. She was the one who was complaining about the professor after all, but she's not smart, so that plot point is just ignored. There could have been potential reasons for why they don't. I mean, for example, the crystal might not have been placed till after they started eating, but we'll never know because we never get an implication explaining it. Instead, this is yet another episode that shows Blossom and Bubbles are not competent enough to do things themselves. They can't save the day. Nope, it almost always has to be Buttercup, Buttercup, Buttercup to the rescue.
Get ready.
I got my... Oh, nuts. Hold on. I dropped it.
Yeesh Louise.
So in comes the Blob King and they begin to do combat by running away entirely. Yep, they just grab the two girls and run away as quickly as they can. Oh, and go figure that Jarod's the one to roll Blossom away, because of course he would be. The Blob King does manage to distract Buttercup and get her to do battle with him, and while she does manage to avoid this dude's tongue at first, she proceeds to grab it in retaliation, but like, why doesn't he just pull her back in to eat her? Instead, he literally just freezes it there, doing nothing, waiting for Buttercup to do something. He at least knocks her away and then grabs Jarod by the ankle, but proceeds to do the same exact thing, standing there, doing nothing, while the heroes can talk to each other and figure out how to save the day. The least it could have been was Jarod hanging onto a column or something while the Blob King tried to pull him into his mouth, creating suspense as he hung on for his life. Instead, this waiting around just gives Jarod enough time to inspire Buttercup to grab the Phantasm crystal and shoot it right at the Blob King, destroying him, it, and the rest of the world while sending the four of them back home and out of the game. Thankfully, the episode comes to a close after all that, with Buttercup and Jarod acting all buddy-buddy with each other, and they agree to play another round after ordering a pizza. Although the camera shifts over to Blossom and Bubbles, who are still in their giant rounded forms for some reason, thus being that evidence I suggested earlier, which proves that the events they experienced weren't in their imaginations all along. I don't think this episode was necessarily bad by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Jarod was certainly still a nuisance for most of the episode, and its feeble attempts to make him look like this morally superior hero character didn't really convince me of anything. But hey, at the very least, this is the first time his love interest status with Blossom wasn't acknowledged, so thankfully that's a positive I can name. He's more than a brick wall for once. I do find it annoying that Buttercup is once again the character that saved the day though. I mean, considering how frequently she tends to be the one to do it compared to her sisters. Buttercup has single-handedly saved the day more times than the other two combined. And this list isn't even counting episodes like Memory Lane of Pain where she had an instance of saving the day herself. I didn't include episodes that feature more than one of the girls saving the day since Blossom also gets her own moment to shine in Memory Lane. I'm looking at purely individual efforts here. I also didn't include episodes where all three of the girls save the day together, are saved by somebody else, or nobody saved at all. But yeah, needless to say, there's some definite favoritism going on here revolving around Buttercup. Those criticisms aside, as an episode overall, Phantasm Chasm is okay. It has a few flaws here and there, and you'll certainly find better D&D episodes out there, but overall, there was some imagination to be had in here, and the few problems I did have, like the slow-paced action or lack of a reason for them getting transported into the game in the first place, did not diminish the entire thing. There's always room to improve, but this is easily the best episode that Jarod has ever been a part of. Not that I'm saying I liked him, because I didn't. He's just better than his other appearances. As I end this off, I just have one final question. How the fuck are they supposed to play again if Buttercup burned the rulebook to a crisp? Good going there, Buttercup. Good job.